This is It's Not What You Know! Hello, I'm Miles Jupp. It's often said that it's not what you know, it's who you know. This is why it's perfectly acceptable to torch someone's property if your aunt knows the man who invented the bucket. Or why one can get away with saying something like, I may be on the whole unremarkable save for my large and shapely bottom, but on the plus side, my sister will one day be queen. Tonight, we're not interested in what you know, but who you know, and this is crucial, more crucial, I have every confidence in saying, than the very air that you breathe, how well you know them. Each of our three guests has nominated someone they know well to answer a series of questions. Could be a friend, could be a family member, could be someone you got to know surprisingly well over the course of a painful and lengthy paternity suit. If my guests correctly predict the answers their nominees will give, they will score points. And what do points mean? Well, according to my dictionary, points, or to give them their full name, PowerPoints, are wall-mounted apertures or docks providing a bridge between individual appliances and the mains electricity system. Pick up more apertures or docks than anyone else, and you'll be lumbered with tonight's star prize, an 11-hour stint in a karaoke booth for you and your next of kin, where you'll be brought free drinks all night from a restricted menu by the chairman of the BBC Trust, Chris Patton, who will have been lured there on entirely false pretences. Ladies and gentlemen, will you please welcome tonight's panel Frank Skinner, Grace Dent and Jonathan Agnew. And we turn first to Frank Skinner, a man whose domination of the comedy landscape over the last 20 years is both remarkable and now a memory. Famous, of course, for his stand-up comedy, his chat show, and for the phenomenally successful Three Lions, a song that will forever be remembered as being a record released in May 1996. Frank, how did you decide who should answer our questions on your behalf?
It's a female friend of mine, and she works on the radio with me as well as being my friend. And when I phoned her up and asked her to do the radio show with me, she said, "Oh, I'm so glad we never got physically involved, or otherwise we'd hate each other now." So it's a female friend who I've never been physically involved with. There are quite a lot of those, but this is just...
Yeah, it's hastily. Let's find out who it is.
My name is Emily Dean. I live in London. I'm a fashion magazine writer, and I also co-host a radio show with Frank on Saturday mornings.
Yes, it's your absolute radio co-host, Emily Dean. Next we welcome Grace Dent, a journalist, novelist and a sensation on Twitter, where she can pithily sum up in 140 characters what it takes others seconds to shout out of an open window. And who recently left The Guardian for The Independent in what was very much a case of leaving a sinking ship to jump into the open sea. Grace, tell us, what were you thinking when you selected your nominee tonight?
I chose somebody who knows me better than anybody, probably. And I'm regretting it already, because she's a bit of a live wire. She's wonderful. Go on.
OK, let's find out who your nominee is.
I am Caitlin Moran, Times columnist and author of How to Be a Woman, and I am friends with Grace, although a more specific and accurate description would be long-term rivals, like that of Alexis Colby-Carrington and Crystal in Dynasty.
Yes, it's Grace's friend and fellow journalist, Caitlin Moran. And finally, Jonathan Agnew, one of the most recognisable voices in British broadcasting. He's the BBC's cricket correspondent, the anchorman of Test Match Special. He's played Test cricket for England against Australia, commentated on archery at the Olympics, but perhaps his crowning achievement is writing the back page in the Waitrose corporate magazine. Aggers, what made you pick your nominee?
Well, I always admire selectors who take a bit of a punt, and I've done that tonight because I have selected my wife's best friend. And she's currently the face of East Midlands TV.
The face of East Midlands TV. Let's, for those of us who are not fortunate enough to live in the East Midlands region...
It's worth the trip.
And it is worth the trip. Let's hear who it is.
Hi, I'm Anne Davis, and I'm one of Jonathan's best friends, and I live down the road from him in the beautifully named Vale of Belvoir in Leicestershire.
Please welcome Jonathan's friend, Anne Davis. Well, I can hardly believe it myself, but it's time for round one already. In this round, we ask your nominees some questions to find out what they know about you. What you have to do is guess how they answered. Frank, we asked your co-host, Emily, what is Frank's most irritating habit? What do you think she said?
I Obviously, I'm not aware of any, otherwise I would have put them to bed years ago. Is it always being correct?
Are you always correct?
Well, not always is a big word, but it's a pretty good rule of thumb word for this.
Let's see what Emily thinks.
I think if I had to single out one thing, it would be his complete inability to conceal his true feelings.
Well, there was an example of that.
Someone will say, "You don't remember me, do you, mate?" And obviously the social contract dictates that you say, "Oh, remind me," but not Frank. Frank replies, "No, never seen you before in my life."
On reflection, Frank, is that a fair summation?
That's honesty, I believe that's called. That surely is a great gift.
Yeah, but it just means that Emily happens to find honesty extremely irritating.
Yes, I can understand that. Like, for example, I went to a birthday dinner and I made a joke, which I like to do. I'll do it unpaid, I don't mind. And I got the name wrong of the person I was talking about. But it still got a laugh, so I didn't realise I'd got the name wrong. And then a bit later, someone said, "Oh, you mean..." And I said, "Well, hold on, why did you laugh then?" And they said, "Oh, well, And I said, no, everybody." And I stopped the meal and said, "Everybody laughed when I said that, and I got the name wrong. So what were you laughing at? And what is the point in that? That was essentially deceitful." It was a birthday dinner, not my birthday, but I virtually ruined it, I think.
Well, it does sound like it might be a slightly irritating behaviour, if you don't mind me saying, socially, just deconstructing the evening as it goes on and then admonishing your fellow guests for their inadequacies.
You'll get used to it.
Yeah. Sadly, no points, though. Grace, we turn to you now. We asked your mate, Caitlin Moran, what is sometime restaurant critic Grace Dent's least favourite food? What do you think she said?
Awful, because she takes the mick out of me, because I can be quite squeamish about offal and things like that. So she will have taken the mick out of me because I won't eat a pig's foot. She loves that. She loves.
Sorry, technical question. Is a pig's foot classed as offal?
Do you have to be right all the time? I don't know. Well, anyway, a pig's ear is awful, surely.
No.
She will have said my least favourite thing to eat is kidneys or truffle.
Let's see.
Because...
Oh, yep. I'd love to hear your reasoning.
We won't be able to put it in the show.
Try me.
I can't say it. I think that she knows that I won't eat truffle.
OK, let's see what she came up with. Caitlin?
Since I pointed out to her that truffles taste a bit like sweaty bums, she's not been able to eat truffles.
She censored herself.
You got 2 points correctly for saying truffles, but she censored herself.
She censored herself there. It's a beautiful thing. I feel quite emotional.
She was forced to censor herself.
I've never heard her censor herself. She must have been. But yes, that's not precisely the term that she gives.
Oh, right.
But that's what she,
well, let's...
And she often has a truffle imported.
Yeah, that's what she tells you. What is that? Oh, I've had a truffle imported.
She uses bummy, the word bummy, as it smells like bums, as a good thing. So she'll kind of go, "Oh, God, smell this. It's so bummy," as she gives you a plate of food. Goodness. And she thinks it's kind of a good thing, meaning it's like rich and earthy and vile.
Despite being a disembodied voice, she really is making her presence felt, isn't she? 2 points, Grace. But do continue to reveal away. We turn to Jonathan Agnew, the BBC's voice of cricket. We asked Anne, does Jonathan have any bad habits? What do you think she said?
Ooh.
What about those long silences you leave?
That's a really difficult question. I think what she would is say that I probably let the filthy dogs loose around the house inside too much, leaping over the furniture,
OK.
Well, she has the brother to my dog, if you understand what I'm saying. Doggy
I can never tell with
conversation.
you, Jonathan, if it's just straight talking or it's sort of street slang, you know. Rat talk.
Something to do with the dog, I think.
OK, well, it's certainly disgusting behaviour. Is it the right answer, Anne?
Yes, I think possibly his worst habit is Bracken the dog. Bracken's allowed to sit on the chair. Bracken has his own chair. Bracken comes first in everything. Sometimes his wife doesn't like Bracken.
We got there.
2 very well-earned points. Yes, indeed, something dog-related. Would you believe a man who spends so many working days each year in close proximity to Geoffrey Boycott is happiest in the company of a creature incapable of speech? Time now to turn to Frank Skinner. Frank, we asked Emily one of those questions that's always cropping up at dinner parties, possibly ones that you silence by having a go at everybody. What is Frank Skinner's favourite drink? What do you think she said?
Well, my favourite drink is Robinson's lemon barley water. I don't know why that should get a laugh. I think it's used by international sports people, at least for 2 weeks of the year.
Do you like it weak or strong?
I like it...
Could you just let me make you a glass of it, or would you criticise it?
Well, I did a TV show once, many years ago, obviously, as Miles has pointed out, and they said, what would you like to drink on set? And I said, can I have Robinson's barley water? And the woman said, yeah. She didn't know that you added water. So the show started, I took a drink, and I felt my jaw dislocate. So, yeah, it has made me a bit...
It's quite a taste, isn't it?
Edgy since then. I also like lemon curd.
Yeah, lemon curd's
And
great.
I have had a lot of Lemsip of late. I'm thinking, come Shrove Tuesday, I'm just going to urinate on the pancakes.
Is that your answer, lemon barley water? Well, let's find out. Emily?
If you had a drink, it would be a cup of tea, but you better put it on a coaster or there'll be hell to pay.
I do make tea with Robinson's lemon barley water. I honestly do that. That's my version. Sometimes instead of milk, I'll add Robinson's lemon barley water to make a lemon tea.
What's it with coasters?
I have a real thing about anyone who can put a hot anything onto a wooden surface and not use a coaster. I find myself... as the cup makes its way to the surface, you know those...
Even in someone else's house?
Yeah, I'll just slip one underneath.
Were you sort of scolded very badly as a child? Not by...
No, I was scalded very badly. No, I was... I've seen some beautiful wooden tables with rings on them where people have just put hot cups on. And that seems to me to be the clearest representation of broken Britain.
Sadly, you were wrong. Well, she was wrong, sadly. No points, that's what this is all leading up to. This rather
Yes.
tortuous
I knew where it
sentence.
was going.
Yeah. Grace, your turn now. We threw this curveball in the vague direction of Catelyn. Grace Dent, we said to her, is renowned for her mastery in a mistresy of the written word. Who is her favourite writer? What do you think Catelyn would have answered to that?
I've no idea. Right, she will have said her. Because she's got a massive ego. Love her, but she'd have said that my favourite writer is Catelyn Moran.
Let's find out what Catelyn thought.
Grace's favourite writer is Grace Dent. Grace has the entire back catalogue of Grace Dent in her house and refers to it frequently.
Grace has the entire back catalogue. Goodness me, Narcissus, thy name is Dent.
No, I think that she's basically trying to say that I'm the kind of person that would just have all of my bookshelves filled with my own stuff and a painting of myself dressed as Napoleon above the fire. And I'm not like that. She's like that.
Well, it's a bit she said, but there you are, hoarding copies of your books when there are so many people crying out for them in the struggling wood pulp industry. Finally, in this round, the last word, and indeed question, goes to Jonathan Agnew. Jonathan, we asked Anne, had Jonathan not entered the world of cricket, what job would he most like to have done? What do you think she said?
Well, she'd have to have said flying. She knows I love that, so... Aviating.
An aviator. Anne, what would Jonathan's alternative career choice be?
Well, if he didn't do what he did, he might possibly possibly be a proper concert pianist because she's really good.
Concert pianist?
Is that right? Are you a proper pianist?
A long time ago. I would never have been that good.
Oh, I'm
It's
sure.
very kindly thought.
Do you serenade the good burghers of the Vale of Beaver with...
Well, I serenaded the beaver on Christmas Eve, actually, in the local pub. Banging out a few carols. It had been a very short-lived career.
Oh, I see. What's his repertoire? He's got 3 carols, basically. But of course, there's always been a strong link between cricket and the Ivories. I speak as a man who once saw Mike Gatting performing Billy Joel's Piano Man in a hotel in Dubai. And of course, Tori Amos played a handful of games at first change for Warwickshire Seconds. No points, I'm afraid. Aggers, it is the end of round 1, but before we move on, let's look at the scores, which, as ever on It's Not What You Know, have been independently verified by some people that we know. In this case, the administrators of the National Lottery Fund. Met up with them earlier this week. Great bunch of lads, and let me tell you, when it comes to organising a night out, they don't leave anything to chance. Release the balls, I shouted, and was frankly amazed at what subsequently popped into my... On balance, though, I'd see them again, but this time only as friends. And we can see that in 3rd place is Frank, in 2nd place is Jonathan, and way out in front, it's Grace. Round 2 is entitled It's Now What You Know. We've already found out how well the nominees know the panellists. Now we're going to see how well the panellists know their nominees. We begin with Grace Dent. Catelyn, we said, if you weren't doing the job you do now, what would you be? What do you think she said?
She said a tramp.
A tramp?
Yeah. Because she's often said that writing gave her an outlet for everything she wanted to say. And she said in the past, if it wasn't for my readers and I wasn't a columnist, I would just be a tramp out in the park shouting.
OK, let's see
I
if
think
you're
that's
right.
what she said.
Catelyn?
I'd be a prostitute. I have no other qualifications.
Well, goodness. Had she mentioned that to you at all, Grace?
Yeah.
Oh, she had, and you were editing.
Oh, yeah, I was editing. I didn't think she would say, yeah. I feel so hot.
Jonathan, how long would it have to rain for during the cricket for the conversation to turn to homelessness and prostitution?
I don't think we've got there yet.
But yes, indeed, a prostitute, said Catelyn Moran of News International. Let's go to Jonathan now. We put this question to Anne. Anne, if you could appear in any current TV programme, which would you choose? And what do you think you should plump for?
It would involve dressing up. But not in that sort of sense. I meant in a nice glitzy sort of a way. Hair and nails and things. So what programme would that be? What's all at the moment? It's all sort of...
The most glamorous is Strictly Come Dancing, isn't it? It's fabulously... No, that is glamorous.
But she also sings, you see. X Factor.
Let's find out, Anne.
I would be so terrified that I'd love to be in the Great British Bake Off.
The Great British Bake Off.
That's same sort of...
Audience. Is Great British Bake Off glitzy enough to score a point?
Must be worth a point, that. I mean, it's the same sort of
I'm
reality
sorry.
TV. Reality.
It's not so much glitter as hundreds and thousands.
This does not deserve a point, I'm sad to say. But yes, it is the Great British Bake Off, which I certainly admire any programme that masquerades as cookery instruction whilst subtly but rigorously reinforcing the British class system. No points. We turn now to Frank. We asked your co-host, Emily. Emily, who's your all-time hero? Who do you think it is?
Henry VIII is someone who Emily has a crush on. If you can have a crush on someone who died 500 years ago, surely she will have gone for him.
Henry VIII, let's ask Emily.
My all-time hero, I would have to say Henry VIII. I have to clarify here, I'm not talking about that young, dashing, sort of military Henry VIII. I like the gout-ridden, misogynistic, syphilitic Henry. I don't know why. You might have to ask my therapist. I can't answer that.
It was good old, big old Henry VIII. Yes, 2 points. That was a good, excellent special knowledge. You'd have to know someone pretty well, wouldn't you, before you confided in them that you fancied a dead monarch. So let's look at the scores, which once again have been independently verified by someone who we know. Our good friends at Mumsnet went round there the other night. I have to say, great bunch of lads.
What a time we had. They wined me, they dined me, they bathed me, which was unexpected. They covered me in talc and put me in fresh clothes in time for my night feed. And we can see that in third place is Jonathan. Second place is Frank. Way out in front, it's Grace.
I'm not a man given to exaggeration, but I have been looking forward to round 3 all my life. Here are the rules. I give you the answer to a question. What you have to do is tell me which of the nominees gave that answer. Jonathan Agnew's friend Anne, Grace Dent's quiet little chum Catelyn, or Frank Skinner's sidekick Emily. Fingers on buzzers time. Which of the nominees said their favourite actress is Elizabeth Taylor?
That was definitely Anne. Absolutely, definitely. It's not Catelyn.
Let's have a listen.
Well, I mean, just for the all-round staring at mass, Elizabeth Taylor.
I'm afraid you're wrong. It absolutely was Catelyn Moran.
Oh, she's lying. I've never heard her ever say that.
I once shared a box with Elizabeth Taylor before she died. This might be the campiest story you ever heard. Elizabeth Taylor was in my box at a Julie Andrews gig. And at one point I looked across and I could see Elizabeth Taylor putting on lipstick in the dark. Oh, I thought that's glamour, isn't it?
When the lights came up, how well had she done?
She looked like Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight. But she tried, you know.
Which nominees said that their least favourite thing is a glass of cherry?
Is it what?
Glass of cherry.
A glass of
cherry. You know, like you put on...
Glacé cherry.
Glacé is the word.
I'm going to go with Anne for that. She's a champagne wine-drinking type. She wouldn't want glacé cherries getting in the way of that.
OK, now that's how to play the game, rather than quibbling with me about my pronunciation. Step up to the plate, hit the buzzer, answer the blue. Right, let's see who did say glacé cherry.
I've managed to hold a glacé cherry in my mouth once for 3 hours at somebody's house because I couldn't actually swallow it.
How does she breathe?
She used to work as a Bakewell tart lookalike.
3 hours. Of course, the best thing to do in these circumstances is to turn to the person on your left, kiss them, and attempt to pass the cherry into their open mouth before convincing them it's a party game they haven't heard of. Jonathan, 2 points. Next, fingers back on buzzers. Which of our 3 nominees, Anne Davies, Emily Dean or Catelyn Moran, said their motto in life is everything is funny?
Well, again, I'm confident with Anne on that because she's always had a very positive outlook on life. She's lively, bubbly. She lives for the day.
OK, let's see who it was.
Everything is funny.
Yes, that's right. It's East Midlands Today newsreader Anne Davies who finds everything funny, an attitude they must find so helpful in the newsroom where she works as she relates the details of yet another terrible tragedy with barely concealed mirth. And we can see now in joint second place we have Frank and Jonathan, but still just in front it's Grace Dent. This round is called The Big One, and it's for a whopping 4 points this time, panellists. It's where we ask the nominees to ponder one of life's big questions. Questions like, what is the meaning of life? What happens when we die? And if God is truly all-powerful, why does he allow ITV2 and the people who watch it? This week's big question is, what is your nominee's favourite vowel? This is, of course, as you'd have guessed, modelled on the classic 1940s BBC panel game What's My Vowel, in which Kingsley Amis would give teams just 3 hours to guess each other's favourite vowels, with clues in the form of theatrical anecdotes. The winner would then have the chance to free a former British colony of their choice. Frank, which vowel do you think is Emily Dean's favourite?
I think that she will say I. It always gets a bit of a reaction when I tell her.
Let's find out.
I'm going to have to say I because it's how I begin most sentences, I think.
Points, Frank. We turn to Grace Dent. Can you guess Catelyn Moran's favourite vowel? You've got a 1 in 5 chance.
She's definitely said I, because she's a broadsheet columnist. She might have said A.
Right.
It's not you. It's not you. It's I.
Any other letters you want to eliminate?
She might have said E. No, she said I. She said I.
OK, well, let's hear, Catelyn.
It's E. I think going E is the best one.
There you go. There you go. That is the noise she makes when she's, like, excited about something you're telling her.
Well, I'm sorry that you got no points there, but I don't want you to get too downhearted about it. There's a whole life ahead of you. Jonathan Agnew now. Jonathan, what do you think is your friend Anne Davies' favourite vowel?
It's just a ridiculous question. I mean, I'm sorry. What a stupid question.
I don't mind you finding some fault with the format here.
It beats the worst question that I ever asked a monosyllabic guest who was not entirely forthcoming. And my last question, with the sweat pouring down on the live interview, was, what do you think of the Euro? On a cricket-based interview. It wasn't great. However, back to the point. I am tempted, because Anne's sort of a neat and tidy individual, to go for the perfectly sort of round O. But, however, her name starts with an A, you see, and so she'll write that a lot. Not necessarily in lowercase. Does it have to be capitals or lowercase? They are quite different.
Think of it more as the sound.
They are quite different. No, I'm going for A for Anne.
OK, let's hear.
A. Obviously, because I'm Anne.
4 points. What a round that was. Well. We've reached the end of the show, and as ever, the scores have been independently verified by some great friends of ours. The Forestry Commission met up with them this week. Great bunch of lads. Went down to the New Forest. Not new to them, I can tell you. Knew it like the back of their hands. Had a very happy stroll down a bridle way, and then, because it was their night off, took the opportunity to set fire to a few mattresses. The final scores show that in third place is Grace. But in joint first place, this week's winners of the karaoke session in the company of Chris Patton, Jonathan Agnew and Frank Skinner. So thank you to our panellists, Jonathan Agnew and his friend Anne, Grace Dent and her pal Catelyn, and Frank Skinner and his co-host Emily. Thank you to you for listening. I guess after all that, it just goes to show it's not what you know. Good night. It's Not What You Know was hosted by me, Miles Jupp. The script was written by myself and James Kettle. The producer was Sam Michelle.